So last class we have completed the file management. Are you clear about the last topic? Yes. How when the two things are pointing to the single one, huh? When you create a child process, that time it will be create a duplicate one, and that scenario, this reference counts plays one important role. And both the processes are sharing the file itself. Even if during the reading partially he is reading, another process partially reading. Very interesting part this one. Yes. When this kind of scenario is necessary, can anybody tell me? When this kind of scenario will be necessary? I have to execute sequentially. I have to execute sequentially, but more than one person doing this. Is it acceptable? मतलब सोचिए कि there are 100 lines are there. कोई 2 लाइन को लेके एग्जीक्यूट कर रहा है, उसके बाद नेक्स्ट 3 लाइन को लेके और कोई एग्जीक्यूट कर रहा है, फिर नेक्स्ट 2 लाइन को लेके एग्जीक्यूट कर रहा है. मतलब sequentially processes are executing, but simultaneously all 3 are executing. Yes or no? That can be done or not in this scenario. Okay. So now we'll go back to the next topic, that is called as IO management. हाँ दीपक
सर उसका वो पीपीटी भेज दीजिएगा ना.
अभी क्लास खत्म होने के बाद तुरंत बोलिए, यहाँ पर ही भेजता हूँ. हाँ नहीं तो फिर
सर लास्ट क्लास का रिकॉर्डिंग भेज दीजिएगा.
लास्ट क्लास का रिकॉर्डिंग अपलोड नहीं हुआ है
सर 5 मई का नहीं,
तो फिर इसके बाद ही आप बोलिएगा, उसके बाद जाइएगा. ठीक है ना?
Okay,
यहाँ
sir.
पर भेजूंगा, उसके बाद जाइएगा. ओके, we'll start now with this. Okay. So currently we have covered the different components of the OS. That one component is the memory management, one is the disk management, then CPU management or the process management, and the next topic is that whatever the IO devices are there, how we can manage this IO devices. So next comes the IO management. So if you can look into this picture, for this IO devices there are 3 parts are present. One is the IO device itself, which is completely hardware, and my CPU and RAM will be my system. Yes, and to communicate this CPU and RAM with this IO devices, I need a controller, and this controller is also basically a hardware, and inside the controller you can find some registers as well as some processors. Then how this controller can act with these things, can act as an interface between this CPU and this. So how many parts? The IO devices itself is the hardware. क्यों slow बता रहा हूँ? So एक बार सुन लीजिए और पढ़ना नहीं पड़ेगा. IO devices are the hardware. Who has to be communicated with the IO devices? The processors. The processors cannot directly communicate. Rather, the processors has to be communicate with the help of the CPU and the RAM. Because process has to be executed by the CPU. While executing, he needs the RAM. And when this particular thing is communicated with this, we need a controller. So what is the job of the controller? But before going to the job of the controller, we have to link what are the different types of IO devices are present. Not like this keyboard, printer or this. Rather, here we are going to study on what characteristics these IO devices are segregated. What is the different characteristics? Like a human being, the characteristics may be a tall or short, or it may be a fat or thin. Similarly, what are the different characteristics to segregate these IO devices? So the first characteristics we'll discuss one by one. Then first characteristics is a data transfer. In what basis the transfer between the IO devices and the memory is taking place? So there are 2 kinds of IO devices with respect to the data transfer. One is called as the byte oriented transfer, one is called as block oriented transfer. Let's think about your disk management. In the disk management, you are using the hard disk. Hard disk is a character oriented or a block oriented? Block, because at a time 512 bytes you are going to read it. So that is a block devices. But character devices kone hai? When you type something in the keyboard, one byte has to be go. means every key will be identified by a one byte. Then one byte will go. After that, next byte will go. Byte by byte, it is going there. Then it is called as a character devices or byte oriented devices. Okay. Next comes the access mode. Already we have studied the access mode also. Some devices are sequential, some devices are direct or random access. Like your tape drive, if you can go for the tape drive, if you want to fetch the fourth song, I have to traverse from 1, 2, 3, then only the 4 will come. Means it is a sequential. But if you think about a CD-ROM where the track and sector is present, if you are in a particular track, immediately you can go to another track to fetch a particular block. So in that basis, it is distinguished. Then comes the very transfer schedule. What is a schedule? CPU schedule का काम क्या है? उसके बाद ये पढ़ोगे. पहले बोल दीजिए CPU scheduling में क्या आता था? If more than one jobs comes at a time, in what way you are going to be executed? So there is a scheduler which will be decided that which has to be done. Here also same. It is a synchronous and asynchronous. What is my synchronous? Synchronous मतलब क्या है? If I am send a request, I have to wait when it is going to be completed. Yes, but think about a keyboard. Yes, I type quickly. When you start the machine, immediately you type the password. Till now it is not displayed also. But after few seconds, your password is going to be displayed. Means what? It is not synchronous. Rather, it is completely asynchronous. Asynchronous क्यों है? मैं टाइप कर रहा हूँ, वो कहाँ पर स्टोर हो रहा है, फिर कोई एक स्केड्यूलर होगा उसको भेज रहा है कि नहीं एक एक कैरेक्टर के. कभी कभी क्या होता है, फ्रॉम द वेरी बिगिनिंग आप टाइप करते रहिए, देखिए फर्स्ट 2 कैरेक्टर नहीं आएगा. क्यों? आप सोच रहे हो कि द मशीन हैज स्टार्टेड, प्रॉपर्ली स्टार्टेड, एंड यू टाइप सो दैट आफ्टर सम टाइम दिस टाइपिंग विल बी कम. But that time the process which is going to fetch your keyboard data, that has not yet started. So that's why few keys are skipped and it is showing that your password is incorrect. Again, you have to retype the password from the beginning. So that's why your keyboard is basically asynchronous. आप टाइप करते रहिए बट देख नहीं रहे हो कि वो एग्जीक्यूट हो रहा है कि नहीं. आप जानते हो कि आप भेज दिए, you have just sent this type data. When you will execute it, you don't bother about this. But synchronous case में होता है क्या है? When you send it, you wait. When that is completed, then the next data you are going to send it. Okay, like a tape drive. Tape drive में ऐसे क्यों है? बोलिए. Why it is asynchronous? टेप ड्राइव सीक्वेंशियल है. सीक्वेंशियल है मतलब क्या है? सपोज ये मेरा टेप ड्राइव है, सोच लीजिए. यस, यहां पर हेड है. दिस इज द हेड. यस, व्हेन यू वांट टू राइट इट, इफ इट इज नॉट सिंक्रोनियस, क्या होगा? आपका जो डाटा आ रहा होगा उस टाइम पे अगर ये स्पीड से मूव कर रहा होगा, कैन योर डाटा विल बी प्रॉपर्ली राइट इनटू दैट टेप? नहीं हो पाएगा. मतलब द स्पीड इन व्हिच the tape is moving, in the same speed your data has to be written. If it is a little difference, no, either your data has to be fast write or data has to be slow write. ऐसे होता है कि नहीं? आपका अगर सिंक्रोन और एक सिंक्रोनियस क्या बोलोगे? वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंसिंग. A picture is coming, at that time your sound has to be come. If both will be not synchronized, if you can just relate with this, then you cannot match that. आप बोलोगे कि बहुत देर के बाद डाटा आ रहा है. कभी कभी होता है ना, टीवी में ऐसे आ जाता है, बट पिक्चर आ जाएगा, साउंड सुनाई देगा लेकिन पिक्चर कुछ देर के बाद आएगा. सो दैट काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स आर बेसिकली एसिंक्रोनस. बट सिंक्रोनियस मींस व्हाट? आई एम गिविंग ए जॉब, unless until that will be completely executed, I cannot start it. That's why it's saying the transfer must not return until unless the IO completed. मतलब मैं जो IO के लिए दिया हूं, that has to be finished, then only I can give the next IO. लेकिन कीबोर्ड में क्या है? 5-6 के एक साथ टाइप कर चुका हूं, उसके बाद वो लेता है एक एक करके. सो दैट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन सिंक्रोनस एंड एसिंक्रोनस. बोलिए. IO डायरेक्ट, रीड ओनली, राइट ओनली, बोथ रीड एंड राइट ओनली. कौन कौन सा है रीड ओनली डिवाइसेस? Only reading devices. From where you can only read? Keyboard. कीबोर्ड से रीड करता है ना. कभी राइट होके देखते हैं हम कीबोर्ड में? कभी नहीं. यस, कभी नहीं देखते कीबोर्ड में. दैट इज कंप्लीटली रीड. राइट ओनली डिवाइसेस.
मॉनिटर.
मॉनिटर एक्सेप्टेड. नो, राइटर.
प्रिंटर. Printer maybe. Printer is a good choice. Printer will be fully writing,
But nowadays monitor is not a writing device, rather it is a both read and write. क्यों है? Touch screen वाला monitor. Through touch screen we can also give a input, and through this eyes also you can see what is coming in the output. Yes or no? So this is basically a monitor, if you can say, and this is your completely a printer. Printer में तो आजकल रीड नहीं होता है, कोई एक अदर क्लास में बोलते हैं प्रिंटर स्कैनर सर आता है, but scanner is an additional thing they have added, but with printer the scanner is not included. For the price, less price, they are including both so that you can purchase it. Yes, but it is completely a printer, and read only is a keyboard. Okay, in this way also you can segregate it. And the last one is sharing. In what way you are going to be shared? So one is called as a dedicated, one is shared, and one is virtual. Dedicated मतलब क्या है? What is the meaning of shared? मतलब एक ही साथ a devices, a particular devices will be shared by many. कौन सा ऐसा है? ना देख के बोलिए.
ऐसे नेटवर्क ड्राइव होगा तो
एक्सेप्टर मॉनिटर में एक साइड पे एक प्रोसेस का डिस्प्ले करेगा और एक साइड पे एक प्रोसेस का डिस्प्ले करेगा. एक्सेप्टेबल. और प्रिंटर
नेटवर्क ड्राइव में
नेटवर्क ड्राइव. ओके, प्रिंटर क्या होगा? डेडिकेटेड और शेयर्ड
होगा चाहिए. नहीं डेडिकेटेड होगा.
इट इज ए डेडिकेटेड. क्यों डेडिकेटेड? ऐसे लिखा नहीं हुआ था, ऐसे नहीं बोलो. एक ही बार में एक ही प्रिंट होगा. यू कैन नॉट से दैट इन ए सिंगल पेज टू प्रोसेसेस इज गोइंग टू बी प्रिंटेड. वो किस वजह से होता है? दैट इज बिकॉज ऑफ स्पूलिंग. बिकॉज इफ देयर इज ए स्पूल डिवाइसेस or pool devices, then all the data process, store it there, and as a scheduler one has to be take and start printing. That's why printer has to be act in both the ways. The printer, if no spooling is used, it is completely a dedicated one. You give it one printing job will be over, then only the next gets started. As for the shared one, hard disks. Hard disks is a purely a sharing. Why it is a sharing?
मल्टीपल प्रोसेसेस
रीड कर रहे हैं. कैसे आप एक बताओगे? कर सकते हैं, क्यों नहीं कर पाए? कभी भी कोई डिवाइस में दो चीज एक साथ नहीं करोगे, बट साइमल्टेनियसली. साइमल्टेनियसली मत क्या है? The CPU has to be give a quantum time for this process and this process. Like this way it is happening or not? And if you can say how many processes currently running, almost 300-400 processes are currently running. Every process is a dot out executable file present where? In hard disk. Can a process completely finish then another process starts? No. All processes are running and all processes are bringing some part of from their executable file to execute their job or not. Means at a time this hard disk will be used by multiple processes or not, accepted or not. That's why it is completely your hard disk will be considered as a disk. Any kind of disk will be considered as a shared, whereas your dedicated is the printer or tape drive definitely. And when you added a spooling kind of techniques with some devices, then it is become a virtual, where it is a combination of this and this. So these are the few characteristics by which you can distinguish what type of device it is. So like क्या क्या पढ़े हम लोग? एक है sequential direct access, एक पढ़े क्या है बोलिए? synchronous asynchronous. Synchronous में एक जो पूरा complete होगा उसके बाद जाके next, like keyboard है asynchronous. और क्या पढ़े? That is a read write readable IO device, writable IO device. And first one क्या पढ़े?
both read write.
No, both read write हो गया. और read write criteria हुआ. Data transfer. Data transfer in what basis? It is a byte wise or it is a block wise. Okay. And the next one is in what way it is going to be set. So once you know my devices is ready, next what's this IO controller job is. So what the basically IO controller has to do? Obviously I have to send a request. The request has to be received by the IO controller. The IO controller now try to check that whether it is properly ready or not. If it is ready, then it will be informed to the process or the CPU. Then the processor starts reading or writing in this IO devices. Then what are the things are basically present here? In IO controller, as I told, few registers are present, and those registers will be represented as a port. Yes, so that is called as a control port. There is called as a status port or status register. Another one is called as a data in register, DI, and one is called as a data out register. So there are four kinds of registers are present. Yes, so one is controller, status, data in, data out. Control register क्या करेगा? Suppose मैं एक read करना चाहता हूँ. What the control registers want? The control register work is to receive the command. Receive क्या होगा? Read or write. These are the commands. These commands will be received by whom? The control register. Once the control register receive a read command, what is his job? Suppose आप controller हो इस room का, आप बाहर खड़े हो. What is the job? अगर कोई बोल रहा है कि मैं यहाँ पर क्लास करना चाहता हूँ, आप क्या बोलोगे? क्या करोगे? Suppose you are the owner of the class. Yes. आप चेक करोगे एसी चल रहा है, whether AC is running or not, fan is running or not, monitor is running or not, all these things you have to verify or not. That verification has to be done through a status register. So through status register, he can able to know that whether your device is currently ready or not, whether it is alive or sleep or not. Suppose somebody wants to write to this monitor. Suppose monitor is now in the sleep mode. Can he able to do this? No. Somebody has to be activate this monitor, then only the text has to be going to be displayed or not. So those things, after you receive this read control messages, then the status register has to verify. Once the status register say that I am ready, then what is the job? If it is a in devices, then in register has to be activated where you want to read the data. If it is out devices, out register has to be activated to out the data. So with these four processes, everything is going to happen or not. So that must be written here. Yes. So that is a data register, status register, and a command. The command is the control, status is the status register. Under data, there is a in or out. Okay. And ये तो definition में कभी भी लिखा होगा. It is an interface between the scientists. कोई भी वो लिख पाएगा. But that is not a big job. Then again we will discuss what I told you here. So how many ports are present? So the connection between this system with this IO devices has to be done through the ports, and this port has to be actually connected with some registers. So कितना type का register? Control, status, data in and data out. Through control register, you are receiving the commands like read, write commands. After doing this, you check the status. Status क्या बोलता है? Whether your read port is ready, write port is ready, your device is active or not. लिखा होगा somewhere. It is not written. You can also say that whether your device is active or not. All this information checked by the status register. And through data in, I can read the data. Through data out, I can write the data. So once this all registers are ready, now how actually data read and data write takes place. So मेरा डिवाइस मुझे पता चल गया किस टाइप का डिवाइस है, किसके थ्रू मैं डाटा रीड एंड राइट करूंगा, 4 रजिस्टर भी मुझे पता चल गया, एंड देयर इज वन आईओ प्रोसेसर ऑलवेज देयर. आईओ प्रोसेसर किसके लिए यूज होता है? यस, जब भी आप कंट्रोल रजिस्टर से एक कमांड भेजते हो, वो कमांड भी एग्जीक्यूट होना चाहिए इनसाइड द आईओ डिवाइसेस और नॉट. वो कौन करेगा? क्या सीपीयू आके यहाँ करेगा? CPU आके करेगा तो क्यों भेजा? If the CPU could have to come here and do this read and write operation, then why he has sent it? Then there must be IO processor present there. Where? In the IO controller. So that it will do it. Yes. थोड़ी देर बाद हिंट नहीं दे रहा हूँ, बोला था एक टाइम पे IO प्रोसेसर कोई एक क्लास में उसका मेन इंपोर्टेंस यूज. ये तो बस हिंट देने के लिए. कहां पर बोला था? कुछ याद है? डीएमए बोल के बोला था, डायरेक्ट मेमोरी एक्सेस. डायरेक्ट मेमोरी एक्सेस में क्या करता है? सीपीयू सेंड इट टू द आईओ प्रोसेसर that you just copy my data, then the CPU is busy with other work, and what the IO processor has to do, take the data from the IO devices, write it to the memory, and once it is completed, then it is generate an interrupt to the CPU that I have finished this job. So this way it is happening or not? Yes, these are the way through which data get transferred. Yes, दीपंकर.
सर तो कोआ में बोला है कि डीएमए जब एक्टिवेट होता है,
हाँ,
तब सर वो सीपीयू और कुछ काम नहीं कर सकता, वो आइडल हो जाता है.
Obviously, आइडियल नहीं, आइडियल कंप्लीटली नहीं होता है, वो रंग है। आइडियल कंप्लीट होगा तो उसका काम क्या है, आइडियल नहीं होता है। और 2 मिनट रुक जाइए, आप समझ पाओगे। सो दिस इज द प्रोसेस। यस, देन हम क्या अभी सीखने वाले हैं, वी आर गोइंग टू नाउ लर्न in what are the different ways this transfer takes place. One way you have told the DMA. What is the DMA's work? CPU first generate a command. Command has to be received by your IO controller. Then IO processor present in the IO controller has to be take this responsibility, transfer this operation in between the IO devices and memory. Once it is over, then it is interrupt to the CPU. You start this job. That is the work. But is there any other work? There are different work. So one is called as the programmed IO, through which you can do it. One is called as the interrupt driven IO. Another one is called as the DMA. There are 3 techniques to do it. Before reading, एक एक करके जाता है। प्रोग्राम्ड IO, एक टेक्निक है प्रोग्राम्ड IO। वो क्या है, बोलता है कि फर्स्ट द CPU जनरेट्स अ कमांड। ठीक है, कमांड कर दिया, कमांड हैज टू बी रिसीव बाय whom? कंट्रोलर, जो कंट्रोल रजिस्टर। After the control register, what he has to do? He has to be check, do something and check the do something in the status also. Status को ready करेगा, everything he has to do it. Then that time CPU क्या करेगा? What the CPU has to do? No, in this programmed IO, the CPU has to wait. CPU क्या करेगा? बार बार वो status register को check कर रहा होगा. Whether my control register has set the status to be okay or not. Are you getting my point? He has given to whom? To the control register. Control register से कौन लोगा? IO processor. IO processor will be execute this control register in the IO devices. What is his job? After the execution of this command in the IO controller is over, then he has to set the status. जे हो गया बोल के, जैसे वो अगर बाहर खड़े हैं, मैं उनको बोल दिया कि आप मुझे भी क्लास करना है, वो क्या किए, यहाँ आके सब कुछ चेक कर लिए। ड्यूरिंग द चेकिंग एंड चेक करने के बाद वहां पर एक लिख लेंगे, नाउ इट इज ओपन, ऐसे ऐसे करते ना, नाउ दिस इज बिकम ओपन। सो ओपन है, जो लिखना ओपन इन द डोर, दैट इज अ स्टेटस रजिस्टर। ओके, सो बाहर जो दिया था, हु हैज गिवन दिस टास्क टू हिम? द सीपीयू। सीपीयू क्या करेगा, इन सर्टेन टाइम इंटरवल ही इज चेकिंग दिस डोर, ओपन लिखा हुआ या नहीं लिखा हुआ, ओपन लिखा हुआ या नहीं लिखा हुआ। लाइक यू आर गोइंग टू ए डॉक्टर्स अपॉइंटमेंट, आप क्या करते हो, बाहर बस चेक करते हो क्या इन और आउट लिखा हुआ है कि एक पेशेंट चला गया मतलब मैं जाऊंगा, द नेक्स्ट वन। सो सिमिलरली व्हाट द सीपीयू हैज टू बी डू, द सीपीयू इज नॉट गोइंग एनीवेयर, स्टैंडिंग देयर इन फ्रंट ऑफ द गेट एंड चेकिंग द स्टेटस रजिस्टर टाइम टू चेंज। The moment he found that the status register is okay, immediately enter into this room and take the class. Then कौन data transfer किया? CPU himself. कौन request दिया था? The CPU himself. Who has to be executed inside the IO devices? IO controller. IO controller करने के बाद what he has to be updated? Status register. During that time the CPU is doing what? Ideal. And during this ideal time, what he is doing repeatedly, checking the status register, what he has done. That is the case or not? The CPU issue a IO command, process and IO module through this, and IO module performs the operation at that side. Once it is done, then IO module set the status bit. Status bit को check करेगा, whether open or close set करेगा. During that time, the CPU is check the status bit periodically. He is just pulling, checking, and he is not doing any work. क्या बेटर हो सकता है? What is the better approach? The CPU is ideal. अगर उनको रूम सेट करने के लिए, if you want to set the room, it takes 10 minutes. Then say 10 minutes the CPU completely ideal or not? What's the better approach? What is the better approach? Diya request. Once he has given request, IO controller अंदर घुसेगा, कोई नहीं जा पाएगा. CPU cannot enter. IO controller का. The moment he has given the task to the IO controller, CPU went and do some other work. Yes, CPU went and do some other work. And after completion of this room becomes ready, what he has to do? This IO controller generates one interrupt. The moment interrupt is generated, now CPU understands that this is ready. After this is become ready, the CPU himself enter and take the class. समझ पाए? तो अभी क्या काम नहीं किया सीपीयू, प्रीवियसली कर रहा था, अभी क्या नहीं किया, आइडियल नहीं बेटा, वेटिंग नहीं किया, बिकॉज ड्यूरिंग दैट टाइम ही इज बिजी विथ दिस। नेक्स्ट क्या बेनिफिट हो सकता है, और क्या बेनिफिट? हाँ
सर इसमें सीपीयू का यूज
एक मिनट, एक, हाँ हाँ हाँ, वो एग्जीक्यूट कर दिया, लेकिन डाटा ट्रांसफर हैज टू बी डन बाय द सीपीयू इटसेल्फ।
सीपीयू
In this case, that is called as a IO driven. But what is the better approach? Better than this? DMA. क्या किया? आया. He has given the task to whom? To the IO controller. IO controller अंदर घुसा. That time CPU has gone somewhere. Do this work. What the IO controller has to do? The IO controller take the help of the DMA and he himself transport the data. Make the room ready and also take his class also. Take his class, and after taking his class, he informed to the CPU that it is done. So here what happens? During this IO operation, the CPU not at all busy. And if you can think about this, when we are studying about the process state transition diagram, when a particular thing is needed in the IO operation, you go to the IO state or waiting state or block state आप बोलते हो. So once it is come to the block state, can your CPU comes here to do this something? No. The CPU is busy with the other processes to be executed. Same thing he has done it here or not. And all this IO operation has to be handled immediately by the DMA or the IO processor present. Okay. So this way it is segregated. Now you can see the interrupt driven IO. Forget about this. After 1 minute, I'll tell you what is this non-blocking and blocking. Very interesting. Yes. Here, what is the CPU issue a command to the IO module, and he is making the other work. Still inefficient in data transfer large amount because the CPU has to be transport the data word by word. Transport the data CPU kiya. Other work the IO controller has done, but the CPU has to be transport the data. Now the question comes. What is this non-blocking and a blocking instruction? आपको एक पता है scanf
और printf.
Very nice. सोच लीजिए, this is a instruction which is currently executed by the CPU, IO instruction, and this is a one instruction which is also executed by the CPU. This is IO instruction. यहाँ पर IO instruction कौन दिया था? CPU. After that, what the CPU has done? Go for some other work. Now, when is go for the some other work? What is that some other work? Whether the some other work is belongs to next line or the some other work belongs to a different process itself. Are you getting my point? What I'm saying? Suppose this is my read request or write request. कुछ एक request दिया था. Some IO request he has given here. Okay, he has given some IO request. After giving the IO request, what the interrupt driven IO says that CPU busy with other work. Now what is that work? Other work मतलब same process का next line और other process का next line.
अदर दोनों ही ना.
ये कॉन्टेक्स्ट स्विचिंग नहीं हुआ. अगर हो गया भी, अगर होने के बाद भी अगर CPU फिर से इसको चांस मिलता है, then where it will come? So it is coming depending upon the block and non-blocking. Why? If it is a non-blocking instruction, next instruction, can your CPU ever comes here unless until this line will be fully completed? समझ पाए? नहीं समझ पाए? सपोज मैं बोल रहा हूं कि यहां पर लिखा हूं कि एक पुट ए देन scanf, देन यहां पर भी लिखा हूं पुट ए देन printf. Who CPU is executing which line? This line. During this line, what are the things has to be done? Put means assume that it is an instruction given to some IO devices. Then he is given this to whom? IO devices. What the IO devices has to be do? IO controller takes this responsibility. What he has to do? Make the room to be ready. During that time, what the CPU has to be do in this scenario? Tell me. Whether it will go to the next line or not.
The next line.
Because it is my blocking instruction. If you can think, put or scanf are the blocking instruction. it cannot go to the next line. If suppose और एक तरीके से आप बोलोगे सर दोनों तो इंस्ट्रक्शन है, सोच लीजिए थोड़ा गलत तरीके से बोला, सोच लीजिए यहाँ पर स्कैनफ है, यहाँ पर प्रिंटफ है, नेक्स्ट है a equal to a plus b and this equal to a equal to a plus b. Now you tell me in this case after the scanf completed the a and a plus plus will be executed, yes, or after the request will be given a and a plus will be executed.
Sir, after scanf is completed, then only that goes next.
What about printf?
It can go simultaneously after printing also. सर मतलब एक इसके बाद भी हो सकता है नॉन ब्लॉकिंग में प्रिंटर.
नॉन ब्लॉकिंग प्रिंटर, इसका कुछ बैक का सीपीयू क्वांटम टाइम हो गया था. ओके, नो यू टेल मी, यहाँ दिखाई नहीं देता. आई एम सेइंग one scanf statement is there, then after a equal to a plus b. In another program there is a printf and a equal to a plus b. Scanf is a IO instruction or not? Printf is IO instruction or not? Yes. The moment the CPU has given a scanf instruction, as per the interrupt driven IO, the CPU has to be busy with other work. That other work is the next line of the same program or other program directly. Is it correct? That is correct. Why it is happening? Because in printf, you know, sometimes the printf's data will be not displayed, but still your program gets completed. कुछ बोला था स्लैश एन लिखिए तब जाके पूरा
बफर क्लोज
करना पड़ता है. यस, प्लस करना पड़ता है. मतलब he has given the task to printf. Printf has given to whom? To the IO devices. Then after immediately start comes and executing this one or not. But scanf क्या बोलता है? Unless until this scanf will be fully completed, I cannot start it here. Means which one is a blocking one? The scanf is a blocking one and a printf is a non-blocking one. In case of a blocking one, during the interrupt driven IO, the CPU has to be busy with other processes program. But in this case, it may be same process, it may be other processes. As you have told, when it will go to the next process, if the quantum time itself completed here. If the quantum time is not completed here, still it is going to be executed next line, even if this printf is not completed. Understood my point? So that's why the interrupt driven IO plays an important. Okay, समझ में आ गया? फिर बोलिए, the next one is DMA. हम क्या सीख रहे हैं DMA में? ये बुक का ही डायग्राम है. So who the CPU has a request for a input IO operation to whom? To the DMA controller. First he has given first step. First step it has given to whom? To the DMA controller. What the DMA controller क्या काम है उसका? He wants to copy the data from the hard disk to memory. उसका काम है. Then hard disk has a controller. The hard disk has its own controller and he has his own CPU. What the DMA's hardware's responsibility is? He is taking the whole responsibility and tell to the CPU, you busy with other work. Once the whole copy will be done, I will inform to you, which is not happening in case of IO. Sorry, interrupt driven. Yes, here what he does, now he has given a request to whom? To the IO controller. What the IO controller has done, he takes the responsibility to copy it with the help of DMA. Once the whole copy gets over, then he is giving acknowledgement to whom? The IO controller gives acknowledgement to DMA that I have completed. Then he is giving this interrupt to the CPU that whole job gets over. Means this CPU is not at all busy here. Now, how can you think that this CPU has to be ideal? If CPU is ideal, in which kind of system it is ideal? If it is a programmed IO. If it is a programmed IO, the CPU is completely ideal. But in case of your DMA, the CPU has to be do other. Otherwise, extra hardware का कुछ मतलब ही नहीं है. क्यों मैं एक DMA वाला हार्डवेयर एक्स्ट्रा परचेज करूंगा जो कि मेरा प्रोग्राम IO में ही हो रहा था. And what the CPU is doing, time to time he is verifying the status bit. जब status bit ready हो जाएगा, then he is copying it. And it is not necessary. Check. few seconds checking.
सर तो उसको फिर पीआईडी भी स्टोर करना होगा ना, डीएमए को।
डीएमए को क्या स्टोर में करवाएगा?
तो पीआईडी प्रोसेस को।
Obviously, that is a common factor. He is saying DMA controller को भी PID भी स्टोर करना पड़ेगा. Obviously, because when you are getting a job from somebody, you have to know that whose job you have received. Whose job means process job. Process job means PID. That is correct.
सर और फिर जब वो इंटरप्ट व्हेन डन होगा तो सीपीयू को फिर वो प्रोसेस को कॉन्टेक्स्ट स्विच करना होगा।
No, when it is interrupt generated, what happens? Hey, interrupt
वेक्टर टेबल
कॉन्टेक्स्ट स्विचिंग होता है या नहीं होता है इंटरप्ट जनरेट होने पर?
हाँ
होना पड़ेगा। क्यों होना पड़ेगा? देखिए, if a CPU is currently in the running state and this job is currently executing, some job P1 job is executing, if an interrupt has come, what you are doing? The P1 has to be come to the ready state and the interrupt service routine program is coming here and start executing it or not. Means the P1 is removed, means context switching has happened. होगा कि नहीं? ठीक है ना? Okay, this is the part. Then tell me, what is the work of device driver? Last.
वो कंट्रोलर और ओएस के बीच का कनेक्शन।
नो, क्या काम है? एक नॉर्मल आदमी को बताओ। जैसे हम सीखे कि प्रोग्राम डायो में क्या प्रॉब्लम था, इसलिए इंटरप्ट आयो का आया। इंटरप्ट आयो में क्या प्रॉब्लम था, इसलिए डीएम का है। सिमिलरली आप किसी को बताओगे ड्राइवर क्या है, डिवाइस।
सर ओएस कैसे कम्युनिकेट करेगा डिवाइस के साथ?
क्या इसका काम क्या है?
सर कैसे कम्युनिकेट करेगा डिवाइस के साथ?
कम्युनिकेट करेगा, मेरा कंट्रोलर है, कमांड्स है, एवरीथिंग इज दैट।
सर लेकिन वो हार्डवेयर है ना, सॉफ्टवेयर वाइज।
हाँ ओके दीपंकर, मैं सुन लिया आपका। Partially. Anybody else? Okay. Partially, I accept it. Suppose think that it is IO devices, and this is my IO controller. What are the registers are present? That is a status register S, control register C, input register I, output register O. Yes. Every register has a name or number something. Yes. Do you think that in every devices the same number has to be used?
No.
May not be. The address for this particular place and address for this particular place, whatever now, in other controller, you may not get it. But naam kya hai? Input register, output register. But inside this, when it is come for the address point of view, it is completely different. But as for the program point of view, if the program wants to write to the tape drive and if the program wants to write to the hard disk, do you think that a printf के बदले उसके लिए scanf use करेगा? नहीं ना. If it is a hard disk or it is a tape drive, both के लिए program knows that I have to write what? Printf. The printf has to be write into any hard disk. Whether that hard disk is a CD-ROM or a floppy drive or it is a tape drive, who knows? I don't know. As a process, I don't know. Then who knows? Controller knows. Even if the controller knows, can your operating system knows about these things? No. The operating system does not know the detail about the hardware. Then who has made this hardware? A manufacturer. Whoever has made this hardware, he knows about that what is the hardware component internally present. He exactly know that what is my input register's address, output register's address, status register's address. He knows all these things or not. So depending upon this, even if I am giving a read request, but that read request will not properly executed unless until I know the hardware details. And that hardware details has to be given by whom? The manufacturer. In the form of every device driver. ऐसे एक example हम किए थे ना, जब भी एक when you include a new pen drive, it is showing that a driver mismatch, driver not found. What does it mean? Because our operating system has no knowledge about these new devices. Then who has to give? You told that you go to that particular company side, download the driver and install it. What does it mean? Inside this driver or the software, all the detail about this hardware is written. Once it is included in the CPU, then all these things will be done. Now somebody can argue, sir बहुत सारे तो devices पहले भी था, उनके लिए तो आप कभी ड्राइवर इंस्टॉल नहीं किए थे. Yes, so your old operating system
स्टैंडर्ड है
परचेज करोगे, जितना एक्स्ट्रा ड्राइवर चाहिए, न्यू ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम आप अगर इंस्टॉल करोगे बहुत कम ड्राइवर चाहिए. Why? Because new operating system already included the previous devices which is available in the market. Yes, and nowadays also there are very common drivers, common driver like a USB. For a USB drivers, even if it is this kind, doesn't matter. He can able to receive this, because with a single IO controller, multiple devices can be connected at a time or not. Like आप खरीदते हो ना एक जो USB hub, एक hub आप खरीदते हो, then multiple USB devices are connected. Means what? That is a single IO controller which is connected to the multiple USB devices or not. Yes or no? So that's why if it is IO controller has to be give the information about your IO devices in the form of what? In the form of driver. So that's why he's saying your driver is acted between what? Your devices and IO controller and your this software called as driver. So once your IO controller has connected directly to the devices, in this IO controller, which one is a status register S? Here the status register may be P, and this S and this P will be known to this driver, even if in both the cases I give a read operation. Even if I am giving a read operation, when you go for these devices, he knows that read means I send it to S. In this case, read means I send it to the P, because here the P and S are the two different. आप देखोगे आर्किटेक्चर जो कुआ में पढ़े होंगे, there are many pins available in the CPU. CPU के चारों तरफ pins होता है कि नहीं, control ये सब pin. Each pin has a specific identification or not? Do you think that every processor has the same number of pin? Even if same number, can exactly second pin is meant for the IO, third pin is meant for the BIOS? Is it like this? May not be. It has to be changed. Since it is changing, somebody has to be know about this kind of arrangement of these pins or not. So here also the same style. Since my device controller itself is a hardware, and under this device controller there are many registers are present. Which register is meant for what purpose? That is not known to my operating system. That is only known to the person who has made these devices. So that person has to be give me a software where it is written that which register is meant for status, which register is meant for the IO, so that I can do a IO operation. But as for this, he knows in means input, OUT means output. Even if it is a X hardware, Y hardware, Z hardware, he knows only in and out. But this in and out will be connected to SRP, that is known to the driver. Okay, so this is about the समझ में आया? IO devices कितना टाइप का characteristics, IO controller का काम क्या है? It is using the different kinds of register to handle it. What way the data transfer takes place? Programmed IO, inter-driven IO, and a DMA and device. इतना ही आपका कोर्स में बहुत छोटा सा पार्ट है. Yes. Then most important thing comes protection. Before going to the protection, it is very simple topic. As for your course is concerned, protection and security का अंदर difference क्या है?
सर प्रोटेक्शन होने से पहले,
Protection
सिक्योरिटी होने के बाद.
Okay, security protection के बाद. Okay, anybody? Protection or security? Very nice. He's saying that the protection is a internal restrictions, whereas the security is the external restriction. Suppose I connected with the internet. I am worried about that whether somebody can access my machine or not. But even if internet will be disconnected, still I am worried whether my file will be read by another user or not. ऐसे होता है कि नहीं? When in Ubuntu, suppose आप यूनिवर्सिटी का जो डेस्कटॉप में आप बैठे हुए, the when today you have written this program, next day when will come in your mind it is doubt that कोई मेरा प्रोग्राम को क्या डिलीट कर दिया होगा क्या, even if it is not connected to the internet. Means what? I need a protection for my own files. Where? Inside the computer. From whom? From another user. So one user think about a protection of his file from another user. Is there any external things involved here? No. But if you can consider whether an internet one hacker could able to access my site or access my computer, then it is comes as a security. So that is a security breach. That's why he is saying the protection happens inside the computer, whereas the security is the external threats. Yes. Then what is the definition of the protection? Very simple way it is written. Yes. Protection क्या बोलता है? कौन सा subject, which subject wants to act on which object for what purpose? क्या बोला? Which subject? Subject यहाँ पर क्या है? Suppose एक फाइल. Yes, or you think about subject मतलब यहाँ पर क्या है? एक user. U1 wants to act on a.txt. What kind of operation? Read or write or execute. So subject कौन है? कौन act करना चाहता है? User. That is the subject. किसके ऊपर act करना चाहता है? On the top of the file. File is the object. What kind of operation he wants to perform on the top of the file? Read, write, or this or not. So that is called as operation. That's why he's saying it has three different parts. He's saying the subject wants to perform certain operation on the object that needs a protection. Simple? Yes. If you can think, if my computer has a U1, U2, U3, 3 users, and if you have a file called as a.txt and a2.c and a3.java, then you are saying this U1 is able to read this data. This U1 is able to read and write this data. This U2 is able to RWX. This U3 is able to only R. Like this, you are giving this permission or not? जैसे CH मोड में परमिशन देते हैं ना. So कौन यहाँ पर सब्जेक्ट है? This is my subject. कौन ऑब्जेक्ट सब है? These are my files is my object. And what kind of operation you want to perform? Read, write, and this. समझ में आ गया? So the protection provides the access control. Means what kind of access? Read, write, or execute access. Who has to be accessed? A subject. On whom? On an object. So object क्या क्या हो सकता है? फाइल भी हो सकता है, प्रिंटर भी हो सकता है. क्यों ऐसा है Linux में? Because as per the Linux system, every device becomes a file. Means before he wants to access a printer, indirectly my process has to be access the corresponding file related to that printer. Means a particular user has to be access a printer in certain purpose that needs a protection. Yes. Then how can you provide a protection? कब protection provide करोगे? जब subject मांगेगा. When the subject will be asked for, I want to do some operation on that object, then somebody has to be allow or disallow. हो सकता है कि नहीं? Yes. Then only if there is a provision of allow and disallow, then only the protection comes into picture or not. If there is no provision for validating whether this request will be valid or invalid, then there is no question of protection. Then how this protection can be allowed? This protection, ये तो बता दिया कि कौन user हो सकता है and कौन object and this. Then what is this? He is saying that a subject wants to, suppose the subject is U1, wants to act on a.txt file. What? He wants to write something to this. क्या? A U1 has made a write request for an object called as a.txt. Then whether it is allowed or not, who will take a decision? That decision has to be taken by a reference monitor, which is provided by the operating system. So the operating system provides a reference monitor, and this reference monitor nothing but a software whose job is to, when a user gives a or subject gives a request for a certain operation on an object, whether this request will be granted or not granted, that decision has to be taken by whom? A reference monitor. Who has to provide? I'll come to this point. Now the question comes, how will validate? That is your question. अगर मैं दे दिया कि U1 को राइट करना है इसके ऊपर, देन कैसे ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम को पता चलेगा कि वो राइट कर पाएगा कि नहीं? मींस देयर मस्ट बी सम प्रीवियस इंफॉर्मेशन विल बी देयर. क्या इंफॉर्मेशन होना चाहिए? Just U1, U2, U3. There are files called as a1.txt, a.c, a.java. ऐसा सब फाइल होगा कि नहीं? क्या लिखना होना चाहिए? U1 यहाँ रीड कर पाएगा, राइट कर पाएगा. U1 यहाँ रीड कर पाएगा, A X कर पाएगा. U2 यहाँ रीड राइट कर पाएगा. U2 यहाँ RX कर पाएगा. यहाँ वो W कर पाएगा, यहाँ वो X कर पाएगा. This kind of information is available. Can your reference monitor take a decision based on this table or not? If this kind of a table is available in prior to this request in the operating system, then operating system job is what? He will send to the reference monitor, please validate this request here. Validate कैसे करेगा? U1 कौन सा फाइल? a.txt. assume a.txt. क्या राइट मोड है? हाँ है, मतलब है. वो कर देगा कि नहीं? And this table is called as the access matrix. समझ में? Yes. So what the reference monitor now job? The reference monitor has to be receive this request from the subject and verify this request based on the entry in the access matrix. That's the thing or not? This is given here. Understood? So what is saying? The reference monitor validate the access to the objects of the authorized subject. मतलब when a authorized subject made a request for a certain operation, this reference monitor has to be verified. How is verified? By looking into a table called as access matrix. So access matrix में क्या होगा? Your one side will be the processes or the users, and second one is this. Now you can say, sir, आप तो बोले कि ये processes है. This process can able to read this file. This process can able to read this file. How many processes? Thousands. Now active is 300. Background में बहुत कुछ होगा. फिर बाद में भी बहुत process create हो जाएगा. Do you think that access matrix has to be created for each process? एक एक process के लिए एक एक entry होगा. Then कभी unlimited रोज हो जाएगा. क्यों? हर एक दिन तो आप नया नया प्रोसेस क्रिएट करते हो. Do you think that for every day I have to make these things has to be changed? Very difficult.
सर वो तो यूजर के लिए रहता है ना.
हाँ, तो क्या बनाओगे? Every process will be executed by whom? यूजर. अरे यूजर तो पहले लॉगिन करेगा तभी तो जाके एग्जीक्यूट कर रहा है ना. मतलब प्रोसेस which is currently executed by the user, that process belongs to that user or not? Yes. If you fix a permission for the user, that is also validated for the process belongs to that user or not. आपका घर के लिए अगर कोई रूल लागू हुआ है, आपका घर के अंदर जो सब मेंबर होंगे सबके लिए वही रूल लागू हुआ कि नहीं? Same thing. If you can make a rule for the user, then automatically the processes belongs to this user follow this rule. And those users is basically called as a domain. Yes. So what you are going to do now? We have to prepare an access matrix, not with respect to processes, rather with respect to domain. So domain कितना होगा? एक कंप्यूटर में हार्डली 5, 10, 1000, उससे तो ज्यादा नहीं होगा. कितना यूजर एक में हो सकते हैं? 1000 यूजर, उससे ज्यादा नहीं हो पाएंगे. ऐसे ना? So only for this thousands user, I created table. So how many entries has to be present in this rows has to be present in this matrix? Hardly 1000. 1000 एक matrix कंप्यूटर के लिए कुछ नहीं, चुटकी में होगा. ठीक है नहीं? Then comes how with the help of this domains how it has to do it. Understood now? Access matrix नहीं बोलता है कि मुझे domain चाहिए. Access matrix बोलता है कि which subject has to be act, what kind of operation on what object. that is the provision. But if I take my subject should be the processes, then my access matrix will be too high, and there is a many duplicates. OE P1, P2, P2, 3 belongs to the same user are doing the same work. Then why I'll give a permission? Rather than give a permission for the domains, that is the users, so that automatically processes belongs to that user will be do this. Okay. So what kind of operation has to be performed on this access matrix? So first comes this. एक एक करके देखिए, सब बुक में सब नेट में वही सेम होगा, हम भी कॉपी किए. Yes, so this is basically taken from your Galvin book. Yes, exactly. आप देखोगे तो यहाँ पर ही रीड लिखा होगा, यहाँ पर भी प्रिंटर लिखा होगा, यहाँ पर भी F1 F2 ही लिखा होगा. कुछ ज्यादा मैं नहीं लिखा हूँ इसमें. Yes, but previous things is very important. You may not go through your book and directly understand these things. With this in your book 4 पेज लिखा होगा, all these 4 pages are somehow accumulated here by this 2 things. So now comes what are ways this access matrix gets prepared. सर आगे क्या नहीं ना, थोड़ा देख लीजिए, खड़े होंगे तो बोल, और 10 मिनट में नहीं ना, आ जाए हम लोग बैठ रहे. Okay, so first one, just see. The first one is simply says these are my domains. Domains means user U1, U2, E3, and these are my files. Which domain will be act on which type, what kind of operation, that is written. So by this way one can understand. But there is a provision to change this access matrix. क्या change है? If there is an entry called as SWITCH will be written in any row to column, it indicates that any processes belongs to this domain D1 can switch to this D3. मतलब क्या है, अगर एक P1 प्रोसेस यहाँ पर है, उसका रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी क्या है? He can only read this ledger printer, nothing else. कर पाएगा क्या कुछ? अगर देखोगे, अगर if there is a P1 process belongs to D2 domain, can he do any operation with F1, F2, F3? कुछ नहीं है, blank है. But there is a provision to switch. Switch मतलब क्या होगा? This P1 process can switch to another domain.
D4.
Yes, switch क्या है? If the domain will be considered as a group. Group पता है? Linux में एक user होता है, एक group होता है. ठीक है ना? ls-l में क्या क्या आता है? फर्स्ट 10 जो बिट्स होता है, क्या क्या बोलिए तो?
चिमोड होता है, फिर
फर्स्ट वन
वो लिंक.
फर्स्ट वन है क्या है? टाइप ऑफ,
हाँ,
that is symbol link for S, D for directory, normal hyphen for the regular files, like this or not. Next 3 RWX किसके लिए? Owner of that file. Next
group,
then
outside world,
means every user belongs to a group. Suppose this domain considered as a group and U1 belongs to this group, and there is a switch written that D2 group का user D3 group का user को change कर पाएंगे. मतलब क्या है? What does it mean? If there is a U1 belongs to this D2 group, if he wants, he can change it to D3 group. Change कैसे करते हैं? What is the command to change? A user can change its group.
सर कुछ था वो change user कुछ था.
No. Owner एक था ना, CHOWN, याद है ना?
हाँ हाँ हाँ.
Please, there is command called as CHOWN. Change the file owner and groups. Yes, आप change कर पाओगे. So if there is a provision for changing this particular one, now you can indirectly say any process belongs to this particular domain can change it to the other process. Change करने का फायदा क्या होगा? What is the meaning? Once it is become changed, then if D1 and D3 को change कर लिया, now he is accessible to these 2 files, but not accessible to that. There is a problem. But Once you change it, there is no provision for return back. Please remember this. Once you change from D2 to D3, there is no switching here, means one cannot change it. Okay, that is called as a switching criteria. Then there is a copy criteria. Copyrights कुछ याद है किसी को? क्या होता है copyrights? आप एक सॉफ्टवेयर बनाए फिर कॉपीराइट बोलते हो कभी कभी, आप ही कुछ
कॉपी नहीं हो सकता,
और कभी कभी बोलते हो कि इस
राइट
कंपनी ने
रीजन
थोड़ा कम पैसा दिया है, उसको रीड करने के लिए दे देता, ऐसे देते हैं. यस, कभी कभी एक बड़ा सा कंपनी आता है, इफ यू आर ओनर ऑफ दिस सॉफ्टवेयर, ही इज टेलिंग इतना पैसा दूंगा, $1 million दूंगा, तू मुझे बेच दे. Then what will happen? Once you sold that particular product, you don't have any rights. Now he has the right to sell or give the copy. जैसे फेसबुक, सॉरी ये जो ट्विटर, ये जो क्या है हमारा व्हाट्सएप भी कोई एक ले लिया ना,
फेसबुक
somebody else दिया, और फेसबुक कोई एक ले लिया, ऐसे मतलब once you fully purchase, then there is no other way to return back to this. So same copyrights is there. The copyrights here, it is represented by a star. What does it mean? It says that this D1 domain has a copyright for F3 file, that is a write permission. मतलब क्या है? This D1 can able to give a write permission to for this F3 file to any other domain. समझ पा रहे हो? नहीं समझ पा रहे हो? फिर से बोल रहा हूं. This D1 has a write permission, copyright write permission for giving this F3's right to anybody. मतलब क्या होगा? D1 this F3's right permission can give to somebody. Like इसका देखिए read star है. Read star मतलब क्या है? He can give a read permission to the other domain or not. Means the copyright only acted in the column wise. Column wise क्या है? If D1 has, sorry, D2 has a copyright permission for F2, then he can give this copyright permission to whom? That is this. But there are two provisions. One is copy, one is limited copy. Limited copy मतलब क्या है? Once I give this read permission to him, he cannot give again read to somebody. मतलब मैं अगर D2 हूं, मेरा पास रीड का F2 का रीड का परमिशन था, I am giving it to you, that is D3, but you cannot give it to somebody. Yes, that is called a limited copy. कभी कभी देते ना, 2 यूजर के लिए आपको दिया हूं, आप अभी फर्दर किसी को नहीं दे पाओगे, मतलब इट इज ए लिमिटेड कॉपी. इस कॉपी में क्या हो सकता है? और एक, if this read will be directly transferred to read start and it will be become removed, then also it is a kind of copyright. मतलब okay, इसमें क्या हुआ? You directly sell your rights. Think, you directly sell your rights to him. मतलब आपके पास और नहीं है, and that time it is called as a transfer. Transfer means what? You remove your copyright, give it to somebody, and he is now eligible for read start. He can give it to somebody. Getting my point? This is the idea behind this one. Okay, understood? What is a limited copy and copy? In copy, the transfer occurred, and during that time you directly give the whole rights to somebody by removing that rights from your side. But in case of limited copy, only you have give a read or write permission to somebody, nothing else. Yes. Then another comes the permission called as owner. What the owner says? If somebody has a owner of a certain object, he can able to add or remove any kind of permission on that file for any domain. मतलब सोचिए, if D2 is a owner of this, then what he can do? He can remove this right from somebody. He can add this right to somebody. Like if he is the owner, he can remove it, add it, any kind of things he can do it. If you can check this, since he is the owner, he has given a right permission extra to him. He can add a right start to him. means there is a provision for adding or subtracting the permission in that particular object to any domains. ओके यहाँ पर भी देखिए ए ओनर था, ए क्या किया, इसका राइट को यहाँ रिमूव कर दिया एंड राइट हैज गिवन टू हिम, सो he has a provision to remove or add the rights. Okay, the last one is called as the control. The control is what? Switch में क्या था? What is the meaning of switch? You can change, a process can change the one domain to another domain. But here is saying, since D2 has a control over this D4, means D2 का any process can able to remove or add or anything here. Getting my point? What is saying? If you have a control over this, then he can change any kind of permission in D4. मतलब he has taken the whole control over D4. Yes, he can now, if he wants to remove, he can remove. If you want to add a read start, means whole power has given to this D2. Yes, even if this D4 is present here, but D2 can add it here, remove it here, any kind of permission he has to do. So that is called as this. A process executing in D2 could able to modify the D4. Anything. So क्या क्या सीखे? फर्स्ट था स्विच. स्विच में ट्रांसफर, कॉपी में दो टाइप का होता है, एक है ट्रांसफर, पूरा का पूरा आप ट्रांसफर कर देते हो, या लिमिटेड कॉपी ओनली रीड करते हो. एंड नेक्स्ट वन ओनर. ओनर किसको करेगा? ओनली दैट ऑब्जेक्ट्स read write permission can be added or removed, whereas this control not only this object, every object belongs to this D4 can be modified or added. Okay, with this that is the last slide. हाँ
सर ये सब जो एक्सेस परमिशन है ये सब तो फाइल में स्टोर होता है ना?
फाइल में, it should be a file, it should be internally must be a file.
नहीं मतलब ये कोई मैट्रिक्स में स्टोर नहीं होता, ये तो उसमें स्टोर होता है ना, मतलब हर एक इंडिविजुअल फाइल का
आइनोड में एक मैट्रिक्स फॉर्मेट में भी होता है, कोई ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम यूज करता है पूरा. अदरवाइज आइडेंटिफाइंग ए फाइल इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट समटाइम्स. Yes, you can also maintain, there is a provision is there how to create this access matrix. One topic is also there. What is the way to create this access matrix? Okay, in that way you can create also. Not necessary, as you told that inside the files inode you write down RWX, which will be known that we can access. Instead of doing this, you can also prepare access matrix to follow. ओके
सर तो कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी इसका कम होगा, मतलब
कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी इसका कम हो जाएगा बिकॉज इन ए सिंगल फाइल इफ यू कैन एबल टू सर्च द यूजर डायरेक्टली यू हैव टू चेक. ओके, बट आप देखोगे फाइल में, आप फाइल को जाओगे तब जाके देखोगे ना, बट यहाँ पर अगर आप सोचने लगोगे कि D1 का क्या परमिशन है, कैन यू D1 के लिए एक फाइल है नहीं है ना, इसलिए ऐसा. ओके, so 12-10 is your exam. I'll send the link is already there. I think 12-10 link is there in the Moodle. You have to answer. And all offline students, those who are currently in online, you have to come to the department. Room number कौन सा है? 203 by 12 noon. Okay. Otherwise, as I have sent a mail, I have to forcibly consider as a zero, even if you appear. That there also I can put a restriction, but I could not put there. But you have to come here and appear. Okay, that's all. I'm sending now these slides. This.
Yes, excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I have some doubts in the deadlock. 2-3 questions.
अभी नहीं हो पाएगा देवान.
एक
मिनट का डाउट है? एक मिनट का डाउट या ज्यादा डाउट?
एक क्वेश्चन मेल पे भेजा हूँ, बस एमसीक्यू है.
एमसीक्यू है?
हाँ, सिंगल लाइन का थियोरेटिकल पार्ट.
ओके, मैं देख के आज ही बताऊंगा. हाँ, आज ही बताऊं.
ठीक है,
ठीक है ना. आज एक ही क्वेश्चन है तो ज्यादा नहीं है तो
दो है, बट सर एक ही हो पाएगा.
Okay, okay. ठीक है. No way. ठीक है. Okay, I'm sending now. You can leave now. I'll just send.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks a lot.